The phone call from the hospital changed everything I thought I knew about my family. My mother had suffered a massive stroke, and the billing department needed to discuss payment arrangements for her extended care. That's when they asked about the medical trust fund I'd been building for 15 years. The one my mother had helped me set up when I was diagnosed with a chronic illness at 22. The fund that was supposed to secure my future treatments. The financial coordinator's voice was apologetic but confused. According to our records, the account shows a current balance of $800. Given the deposits we see over the years, we expected significantly more. Has there been some kind of error? I felt my chest tighten. $800? That was impossible. I'd been depositing money religiously for 15 years. Between my contributions and my late father's life insurance policy that was supposed to fund it, there should have been over $200,000 in that account. That's when I learned my mother had been systematically draining my medical fund for 15 years to finance my sister's lifestyle. Every penny I'd saved while managing my chronic illness. Every dollar from my father's life insurance meant to protect my future. Stolen to pay for my sister's luxury apartment, her failed business ventures, her lavish wedding, her finding herself trips across Europe. And my mother had watched me scrimp and save and sacrifice, knowing the whole time that the safety net I was building didn't exist anymore. Let me take you back to when I still believed my mother would protect me the way I'd always protected my family. I was 22 when I was diagnosed with lupus, an autoimmune disease that would require lifetime medical management and potentially expensive treatments as I aged. The diagnosis terrified me, but my mother held my hand through every doctor's appointment in those early months. She was the one who suggested we set up a dedicated medical fund, who helped me open the account, who insisted her name be on it too, just in case of emergencies. My father had just passed away 6 months before my diagnosis. A sudden heart attack that left us all reeling. His life insurance policy was substantial, and Mom suggested we split it 3 ways. A portion for her living expenses, a portion for my sister Emma, who was struggling to find her path, and a significant portion for my medical fund. It seemed fair and thoughtful. I was touched by how much my parents had planned for my future health needs. I deposited money into that fund religiously. Even in my 20s when money was tight, even when I wanted to take vacations or buy nice things, I prioritized my medical fund. I worked through flare-ups and painful days because I knew I was building security for my future. Every time I checked the balance, which admittedly wasn't often because I trusted the system, it seemed to be growing appropriately. My mother was always supportive. She'd call to check on my health, ask if I was keeping up with my medication, remind me how important it was to stay on top of things financially. She seemed like the perfect mother, concerned and involved. She'd tell me how proud she was of my responsibility, how Dad would be proud too. Meanwhile, my sister Emma seemed to be living a charmed life. She'd moved into a beautiful apartment in the city when she was 25, an apartment I couldn't understand how she afforded on her sporadic freelance income. When I asked, Mom explained that Emma had gotten a small loan from Dad's estate to get started. It seemed reasonable. Mom said she'd given both of us help from Dad's money. Emma launched 3 different business ventures over the next 10 years. A boutique, a catering company, and an online lifestyle brand. Each one failed within 2 years. Each time she seemed to bounce back financially without much struggle. I wondered sometimes how she managed it. But Emma and Mom both insisted she was learning to be entrepreneurial and that the family should support her dreams. Then came Emma's wedding 5 years ago. It was extravagant. A destination wedding in Tuscany with 60 guests, designer dress, week-long celebration. The whole thing must have cost at least $80,000. I remember sitting at the reception, eating an elaborate meal I couldn't really afford to travel for, wondering how Emma had saved that much money. When I asked Mom privately, she said Emma had been very financially responsible and had saved for years. She made me feel guilty for even questioning it. I attended that wedding in pain, having skipped some of my medication that month to afford the plane ticket. I smiled through the photos while my joints ached. I was happy for Emma, truly, but I was also exhausted from managing my illness while watching my sister live a life that seemed impossibly luxurious compared to mine. There were signs I missed or rationalized away. Mom would sometimes seem nervous when I mentioned checking my medical fund balance. She'd change the subject quickly or remind me that, as long as you're making deposits, everything's fine. Once, about 7 years ago, I noticed a discrepancy. The account seemed lower than I expected. When I mentioned it to Mom, she said there must have been administrative fees I didn't know about, and she'd look into it. I trusted her and forgot about it. Emma's finding herself year in Europe 3 years ago should have been another red flag. She spent 12 months traveling, taking photography classes in Paris, wine courses in Spain, yoga retreats in Italy. She posted constant updates about her journey of self-discovery. I remember feeling a mix of happiness for her and resentment that I couldn't take time off work without risking my health insurance. When I asked Mom how Emma could afford a year of not working, Mom said Emma had been very frugal and saved up. The implication was that I could do the same if I managed money better. I lived modestly. I drove a used car. I rented a small apartment. I declined social events that cost money. Every financial decision was filtered through the question, can I afford this and still contribute to my medical fund? I had dreams of traveling, of buying a home, of living more freely. But I always told myself those things could wait. My health had to come first. The hospital billing coordinator's call that day wasn't just about Mom's stroke. It was about my future treatment. I'd been managing my lupus for 15 years, but my rheumatologist had warned me that I'd likely need more intensive and expensive interventions as I got older. The medical fund was supposed to cover that. Learning it was nearly empty felt like the ground disappearing beneath me. I drove to the hospital in a daze. Mom was unconscious, so I couldn't ask her directly. But I demanded access to the full account records. What I found destroyed me. For 15 years, there had been regular transfers from my medical fund to an account in Mom's name. Thousands of dollars at a time. The pattern was obvious once I saw it laid out. Large withdrawals corresponded exactly with Emma's major life events. When Emma got her luxury apartment, $30,000 withdrawn. When Emma started each business, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 withdrawn. The Tuscany wedding, $80,000 withdrawn in increments over 6 months leading up to it. The year in Europe, $60,000 withdrawn. Over 15 years, my mother had transferred nearly $200,000 from my medical fund to support Emma's lifestyle. The only money left was what I'd deposited in the last few months before Mom's stroke. When Mom regained consciousness 2 days later, I confronted her. She cried immediately, but her tears felt manipulative rather than genuine. She said Emma had been struggling and needed help finding herself. She said I was so responsible and capable that I'd be fine without the money. She said she'd always planned to pay it back somehow, but never did. Emma needed the support more than you did. Mom actually said, "You've always been fine. You handle everything." But Emma, she needed a mother's help. The implication was clear. I'd been strong and self-sufficient, so I didn't deserve the same support. Emma had been struggling, so she deserved everything, including money that was specifically designated for my medical needs. I asked Mom if Emma knew where the money was coming from. Mom hesitated, then admitted that, yes, Emma knew. They'd both known. For 15 years, they'd watched me sacrifice and save and build a safety net that they were actively destroying, and neither of them ever told me. Emma, when I finally confronted her, was defensive rather than apologetic. She said she'd assumed Dad's life insurance was family money, and that Mom could distribute it however she wanted. She said she never asked me directly because she didn't want to make me feel obligated. The mental gymnastics were astounding. She'd accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars meant for my medical care and convinced herself it was fine because she hadn't technically stolen it. Mom had. The legal situation is complicated. Because Mom's name was on the account, what she did wasn't technically illegal. It was a betrayal of trust, a moral violation, but not a crime. Emma claims she didn't know the full extent of the situation, though the evidence suggests otherwise. Neither of them will face legal consequences. But the personal consequences are devastating. I've cut off contact with both Mom and Emma. My mother had a stroke, needs ongoing care, and I'm not providing it. Emma sends occasional messages saying she's sorry, but she's never offered to return any of the money. She can't. She spent it all. I'm 37 years old and I'm starting over financially. The chronic illness I've been managing for 15 years is getting worse, just as my doctors predicted. The treatments I need are expensive. I have no safety net. I'm working while fighting my body's decline, trying to build from nothing what I thought I'd been building all along. The worst part is the time I lost. If I'd known my medical fund was being drained 15 years ago, I could have stopped it, rebuilt it, made different choices. But Mom and Emma stole that from me. They didn't just take my money. They took 15 years of my financial life and replaced it with a lie. I look back at photos from Emma's wedding, her smiling face surrounded by luxury paid for with money meant to keep me healthy. I remember the year she spent finding herself in Europe while I was working through pain and exhaustion. I think about Mom's constant praise for my responsibility, her reassurance that I was doing everything right, all while she was systematically robbing me. Sometimes people ask if I'll ever reconcile with my family. They say Mom was just trying to help both her daughters. That family is complicated, that surely we can work through this. But they don't understand what it feels like to discover that your own mother looked at her two children and decided one deserved security and the other deserved nothing. That she could watch you sacrifice for 15 years, knowing it was meaningless, and never say a word. I spent my 20s and 30s building a safety net that didn't exist. Now I'm facing a future where my chronic illness is progressing, my medical needs are increasing, and the financial foundation I thought I had is gone. All because my mother loved my sister more than she valued my survival. That's not family. That's betrayal. And no amount of apologies can give me back the 15 years of security they stole from me. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories.